Amanda, the next one I'd like to talk to you about is the art of detoxification. And I chose that word with care because it strikes me that many of the people I know, and indeed me, when I first started down this pathway, I used to go gung ho, and it becomes a kind of very harsh, radical process. And I think you have a much more gentle, kind of considered approach to detoxification. I wonder if you could talk about why that's actually more effective in the long run.
I feel that detoxification is just part of one's lifestyle ongoing. Yeah. And then there are moments where you're doing a little more focused care. And again, thinking in a more preventative way. Yeah. Because yes, it can be harsh. And true, there are situations where you do need to get stones out of the gallbladder, liver, and those are pretty intense detoxes and very profound detoxes. But really, if you're doing it on a regular basis and also you're really considering what is coming into your body that has to then come out, it's going to be an easier ride for you. But also, like, to remember that the body naturally is always doing this, right? The body's naturally always having to take care of the trash. It's literally its day job, right? And night job. So the body just might need a hand because of the considerations of all the different lifestyle factors. So, for example, if you're malnourished or you're whether it's electrically malnourished, whether it's actual biochemically malnourished or emotionally malnourished, there's all different aspects of that. Then there's a deficiency, and it's harder for the body to fix things in a very timely way. Then if there's things that are blocked, right, meridians are blocked or organs are congested, things are not moving, there's stagnation, that can be a complication and cause a lot of problems, obviously, because things build up. And then there can be complications of the release as well, because it also takes enough material resources and electrical resources to do it. And then, of course, preventing as much of it coming in, all the toxins coming in. So, yeah, I feel that spring and autumn, at least like if you have 4 seasons, are very helpful times, or it'll happen naturally where you'll just get a cold or flu at those times because that's your detox time. It'll just take you there. It'll take you there whether you like it or not. But if you prevent it, if you're on top of your cleansing game, if you're doing regular cleansing practices as part of your lifestyle, most of the time you won't go through an expression like where the body needs to produce mucus to move it out and puts you in your bed for a few days kind of thing, right?
Or if you do go through it, it's fairly mild. It's not a severe event.
Mm-hmm. And if it is a mild, excuse me, like mine, like I just went through, if it is a mild event, like a day sort of thing, it's just, it's an indication where you reflect and you go, yeah, you know what? I haven't done my coffee enemas in a while. And that's true for me. I haven't done them in a bit. I've been really busy, right? Like, where are we neglecting? And it's fine. It's just a little pivot. It's just a little reminder to take care of things. And, I usually start taking my colloidal silver and start working through I take a sauna to sweat. I up my care. I use a lot of teas, a lot of herbs, which are really supportive. Take my Ormus, take my zinc, like this type of stuff. So it's just like a information feedback when your body is showing symptoms, like what it needs help with, not suppress, but needs help moving forward to complete. That's really my sort of sense of detox.
Can you think of maybe the top 3 simple and inexpensive daily habits someone could adopt right now to support their body's natural detox pathways?
Well, assess where the poison's coming in and stop that. So alcohol, coffee, cigarettes, weed, the list goes on. Processed foods. People know what they're not supposed to eat. Okay. Like, if they just take a second, they kind of know that they shouldn't probably have that extra chocolate bar or whatever, right? So watch where it's coming in, okay? Because that's a prevention part. Sleep hygiene is really important because that's when you repair. So going to bed, 9:30, 10 o'clock, getting 90-minute segments. That's how we sleep. So every 90 minutes you have a cycle, and try to wake up in that way. So we actually aren't getting enough sleep. 8 hours isn't actually enough, even especially for women. It should be more like 9 hours. But you can add the 90-minute segments up, and that will give you an idea of how much sleep you should get, and try not to wake up in the middle of that, because you can wake up having a terrible day where you're groggy and you don't quite regulate. And then connecting with nature and going out into nature, not just for sunlight and grounding, whatever, but just to calm the production of life, like this whole idea that we have to constantly move forward, where it's like this idea of the culture that you cannot stop, you're not allowed to rest, and you're not allowed to integrate. And meditation. And so nature meditation I think is very important, because it can regulate your biofield, and we forget that we're electrical beings. So I would say, yeah, stop putting in the poison, get proper sleep, and meditate in nature and connect to nature as best as you can in this world, because we're really here for a temporary experience to learn our lessons and to exist and to be, right? To be who we are, rather than a product of industry, because that's how they have us running, right? You got to work to live. I mean, that's ridiculous. You don't need to earn money to live. It should never be a thing. But they've got us in the slave system so that we feel like if we don't get up and hustle all day, we're not productive, then we're not good members of society, right? And that's the trap. I think that's a huge trap.
I think one of the things that really helped me I love nature anyway, I love walks, and I'm blessed to live in such a lovely place, but I go out with a camera, and then I'm encouraging myself to look for the views and really appreciate what I'm looking at that would be worth capturing. And I find that keeps me really centered in this moment and not off in my head doing things, having conversations that have never happened, or reviewing conversations that are long gone. And I think that's been a really powerful way of doing it, to keep me very focused. You know, where's the shot? Where's the angle? What am I actually looking at here? How can I do this properly? For me, it's a really nice way. If I can go out on a long walk and get 1 or 2 really good photographs, I know it's been a good walk because I've been very present on the walk then.
Yes. And being in that place of presence. Absolutely. Yes. That's because the joy is in the present moment. It's not in rehashing the past and having anxiety over the future.
That's right. Yeah. And it's definitely not hidden inside these little devices either.
No, definitely not. That's where I've started to really realize how social media is skewing our worldview. And not just the doom scrolling stuff, but just the whole, what we think is a normal day-to-day existence. And then when you go out into the world, it's not that way, right? No. Yeah.
I have another quick question for you on toxicity, if I can, just real quick. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I get concerned about is I see people pushing it too far, and they constantly are detoxing. Could you talk a little bit about that, and maybe some signs that people should be aware of that they are pushing themselves too hard in that area?
Well, there are people who have addictions, and an addiction can be to anything. Yeah. You can literally get addicted to detoxing. You can get addicted to your diet. And when you feel out of control in your world, the mind wants to cling to something that feels stable. And it can happen with bad things, and it can happen with what we call good things. And too much of a good thing, as they say, right? Your body isn't meant to be stripped of itself. It is meant to be nourished and supported. And when you overdo detox, you're no longer nourishing and supporting. You're stripping of it. You're releasing too much. You're straining and stressing the system. That's not the goal. The goal of detox is not to add more stress. It's to relieve the stress so that it will continue its natural processes without being blocked, right? And like there are people who go into like water fast or dry fast for extended periods of time, and some of them have lost their lives doing that. Even coffee enemas can be addictive because if you think of like the world as dirty, and then the dirty gets in, and there's a control or a habit of controlling, then you can think you're dirty, and then you can be addicted to different kinds of like enemas as cleansing, right? To be pure again. And so being very careful about your thoughts around why you're doing any particular practice. And I think it's important to have a goal, set a goal. What are you even doing it for? I want to feel better. I don't want to be bloated anymore. I want to digest my food better. I want my mood to improve. I want to sleep better. Find out what your goal is, and then just that's what you're headed toward. And then just check in. Am I doing, out of 10? Am I, doing better or worse, or where am I at on that scale? And then just, use it as like maybe a monthly cycle or monthly review. You could use the moon as your guide or whatever, like on the full moons, like this is when I check in with myself or whatever, rather than it being like a marathon or a competition. Or some sort of control. So you really have to look at why you're doing it and the goal. And I think that will keep you away from the extremes of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to add to that, if I think about being overweight, not me personally, but people who are overweight, that if you view that as a form of toxicity, which I think it is, if you decide I want to lose 5 pounds this week, you didn't put 5 pounds on in a week, so don't try and lose it in a week. If you try and lose it, over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 months and just take your time, you're much more likely to be in a position where you'll naturally lose the weight and it won't come back. Whereas if you try and force anything, there's a problem.
That's a recipe for failure, any quick fad sort of diet directive, right? Because you might get a win quickly, and then you can't maintain that lifestyle and eventually will revert back to some of those older habits. And then you will feel defeated, right? And that's also a recipe for disaster where you just kind of you give up. Like, what's the point? Rather than let's look at my lifestyle overall and where can I fit in exercise and when can I make meals? Maybe the way you're making meals isn't working. Perhaps you need to do a meal prep. Maybe once a week you do a whole week's meal prep or something. Maybe that's what works for you. Or you have your specific recipes you like to make on a regular basis, and maybe you freeze some of it or preserve some of it in a way, right? And you have to really, it takes some time. Yes, it takes some effort to assess those things, but it's worth it because the outcome is what you want, unless you're self-sabotaging, where a lot of people are, right? They say they want to lose weight. They say they want to feel better. They say that, but the work and the effort it takes, they might not know what to do there. And so they go into these fad diet extremes because they think that's the answer. But really the answer is like a calm approach and a planned approach to the goal. Yeah.
Brilliant. Amanda, thank you. That was wonderful.